Well, we're thinking that, trying to remember this, that there were a variety of factors that kind of coalesced to make this all happen. First, we had um, just a general kind of an undercurrent, I would say, among a fair number of upper class students at the college, that we wanted something more than we were getting in Anderson Hall and Pauling Hall, but we were not cut out to be Greeks. We were first of all, um, I would say a characteristic was a strong a Christian commitment that didn't want to be involved in some of the kind of mess that went on in some of the fraternity houses. So it wasn't that we were totally against the concept of a close fraternal feeling of brotherhood and all, but the mess that went with that. But also kind of anti-conformists. That's why we were still independents, because most of us had been recruited to go into one of the other fraternities by the fact that we were, reasonably good students for the most part. Everybody but me, that is. But leaders on the campus and involved in things. So it wasn't that people didn't want us; they did want us, but we didn't want that kind of lifestyle. So you had that kind of as a sentiment out there. Along with that, then, my brother happened to be serving in the president's office, and he had graduated just a year before, or 2 years before, '63, I guess. And the college was growing, they needed space, the dorms were full and overflowing, and the president had moved from what had been the president's house, which was our first house. He'd moved from that house a couple of houses up on Main Street to a new president's house. The old president's house was sitting empty. Because they were looking to how could they accommodate more students, they were actually thinking about maybe putting some students into that house and just operating it as a housing unit. And I happened to learn about this, that might be a reality, and with this notion that there were people that would possibly be interested in that, the genesis for the idea of maybe putting an exclusive, instead of it just being a house that anybody got assigned to, that you have a house that would have some kind of a programmatic concept to it, and we came up with the idea of an honors house. The college didn't have much money. They weren't interested in doing much with it because they didn't know what the house was going to be. So when we got into our very early conversations, it was all about the fact that we were going to, if they were going to do this, we were going to have to do everything to the house because they didn't have anything. Now in the end, they did have some bunk beds and things like that from Warrendale or wherever they could get. So the bunk beds kind of went in there, were provided by the college. But other than that, and you guys, Jim in particular, can remember some of the details about getting people to give us furniture and stuff. We had to do that. The house hadn't had anything done to it. They weren't going to do anything to it. Some of us went in there and painted all the walls, or at least all the walls that needed painted. We had to go buy, as I recall, we even had to buy the paint. I don't think that we got the paint given to us. No. And I remember we went over to, I think we went over to Welco or someplace where we found a deal for getting some paint for practically nothing, and the utensils for that, and we painted whatever we painted. I remember the carpet was kind of all messed up, and we couldn't afford to get a shampoo machine or anything to do the carpet, so we did vacuum the carpet, but that's with some old vacuums provided by the college. But we just kind of cleaned it up and made it the best we could. But back to the formation of it then, so the idea was, if we did it on an honors basis, the idea evolved, who was going to be the house mother there? Well, the way the house was laid out, if you put a house mother in there, that was going to take up a bunch of the spaces for beds, and that was going to limit the number of people you could get in there. So that made them more receptive to the notion that we do this on an honors basis all the way, to where we wouldn't even have anybody in there to supervise us, and we live by an honor code. And so that idea began to develop, and then they wanted us to present what our ideas would be on that. So when I began to find that this had the possibility for traction, I started talking to a few people, and frankly I don't remember the order in which I talked to people or who came on board, but the article in here says that there were seven people that met the kind of format, so that must have been the first kind of 7 people that came into the group. But what I did was, the way that I remembered it was that I went to a couple of people in Pauling that where I lived, that there were people that I knew well that I wanted, and I knew we were going to have to get people from Anderson, so I went over and got some of the Anderson leadership, and we had a nucleus of people that, as I explained the idea, they kind of bought into that. And the idea was, was centered around Christian moral values, good academics, leadership development, and very, very, very strong flavor of independence. Powerfully strong notion that we did not want to be a fraternity like the other fraternities on this campus, that we were very much about the development of the individual, which really, if you go back and you look at the kind of historic charters of the national fraternities, that's what it's all about. It's about character development. But it gets lost a lot of times in this whole group concept. So we were trying to say, we want the best of that, but we don't want all the malarkey that goes with that. So that's why you see in the founding documents such a strong emphasis on individualism and individual character development and moral values and these kinds of things, and scholarship and leadership development and commitment to excellence and so forth.